If you like tacos as much as I do, then I've got this great Portobello recipe to share with you. My name is Chef Pete. I'm with Canyon Ranch Spa and Fitness at the beautiful Venetian Resort in Las Vegas, Nevada. And today I've got this recipe that I'm going to start with by making a charred tomato salsa. We're going to marinate some portobello mushrooms, and we're going to finish it off with a fresh cabbage slaw. So to get started, I've already quartered 6 Roma tomatoes. And the benefits of roasting tomatoes is that we're going to be able to release the lycopene. And the lycopene is a very heart-healthy phytochemical that develops and is more absorbed as we cook tomatoes and release it. Now, another way to absorb that lycopene is to add a lot of healthy fats to it as well. So I'm going to start with roasting 1/4 onion, a half a poblano chili, which has some nice medium spice to it. Now, if you want to go a little bit hotter, you can use a jalapeno, a habanero, or you can go a little bit lighter with poblanos or serranos. And you can control that by as much or as little as you want to add as well. And if you don't like spice, you can totally omit it. So we're going to roast these in the oven at preheated at 400 degrees. Now with our portobello mushrooms, we're going to marinate those. And we're going to start by first cleaning out the gills inside of it. It gives the mushroom a much cleaner flavor. So working over a bowl, we can use a spoon and remove the soft parts underneath, and then just scrape out the gills. Now once you've got 3/4 of mushrooms done, we're going to slice them like a steak, about a 1/2 inch thick, and then we're going to marinate it with a little bit of Bragg's amino acid, which is like a soy sauce replacement. We're going to use about 1 ounce for these mushrooms, and they're like a sponge, so they're really going to absorb that flavor. We've got a little bit of cumin, some chipotle chili powder, and we're going to use a 1/2 lime juice squeezed over the top. Now this is going to give it a very nice, very similar to a carne asada flavor, but it's going to be much more heart healthy with lower cholesterol. Now the stems of the portobello mushrooms, you can save these because we're going to use these later on in a stir fry for dinner. So with these mushrooms, we're going to let them sit. They're going to soak up all that flavor and absorb it. And then we're going to work on our cabbage slaw. Now, cabbage is great for anti-inflammatory properties, and it gives it a great crunch. And so with this dish, we're going to cut the cabbage very fine. Now, if you're not familiar and used to using a knife, you can take your time with it. And we're going to add this to our mixing bowl. We're going to use the other 1/2 of the lime, and we're going to squeeze that over it. And then put that aside. Now, when I season with salt, I like to use a nice pink sea salt. And we're going to put that over our cabbage as well. We're going to save the rest of our cabbage because, again, all these leftover vegetables can go into a great stir fry. All right, so we have our cabbage. We're going to take about a 1/2 cup of fresh cilantro. Now with this, you don't have to cut it up very fine. You can leave it nice and coarse. And those aromas are really going to come out when we mix that with our slaw. Okay, so now we're gonna toss that, and this is going to be a great ingredient to top our tacos with. So we're going to let it sit. The cabbage get a little bit softer as it sits with that lime juice. Okay, so now we're going to take our Teflon pan. Now Teflon is great to use when it's nice and fresh without any scratches in it. If it starts to get worn and scratched out, that's when you want to replace it, because that's when it starts to cause health problems. Otherwise, it's a very clean, easy surface to cook with. If you want to use a lot of high heat, if you're going to sear shrimp or if you're going to sear a steak on the pan, you'll probably want to use stainless, because at some point the temperature will get too hot for the Teflon, and Teflon can burn itself. And the pan will wear out a lot quicker. We're going to cook our mushrooms in some nice avocado oil. Avocado's got a great healthy fat. Now, With avocado oil, you can use this, you can add a little bit to a smoothie. You could drink it straight for the health benefits of it. You can cook on high heat. You could use it in a salad dressing. It's really a multi-purpose oil, and I'll always have a little bit of it in hand. Mushrooms are like a sponge. So if you don't cook them over high heat, you're gonna allow that water to kind of seep out of it slowly. And that's gonna cool the surface of the mushroom. It's gonna prevent it from caramelizing. And we wanna use high heat. We're gonna use oil to get that smoking hot, and then we'll drop our mushrooms in there and try and brown the outside of it and give that nice, more caramelized flavor. So that way they're not soggy, because nobody likes a soggy mushroom. And you'll be able to tell when your pan is hot because you're gonna get a nice little bit of ripples of smoke just coming off of it, just a tiny bit. And that's when we'll know that we can put our mushrooms in. So now we want to use about 3 pieces per taco, and 1 serving is going to be 3 tacos. So we're going to try and get about 9 pieces in here. You can hear that oil nice and sizzling. You'll be able to start to smell those flavors come out. Now, as the mushroom cooks, it's really going to shrink up and start to evaporate, because all that water is going to be released. You can see most of what's coming off that is the flame from the, or is the steam from the water evaporating out of it. Now, I don't want to shake my pan. I don't want to turn the mushrooms. I just want them to sit, let them hang out there for a minute and start to caramelize those flavors. The more we shake the pan or take it off the heat, the faster we're going to cool the pan down. And we're already cooling down. Think about throwing an ice cube into a small cup of water. It's going to cool the water off really quickly, as opposed to throwing an ice cube into a swimming pool, where that pool is just going to melt the ice and the temperature is not really going to change. So the bigger the pan, the heavier the pan, the more it's going to hold the heat when we put something in like mushrooms or a piece of protein or tofu or something like that, where it's going to cool the rest of the pan off. Now, most people are going to wonder where they can get their protein from if they're strictly plant-based. Now, I prefer to eat plant-based myself, and I get all my protein from certain vegetables. And that's why with something like a liquid amino acid, where there's all 9 essential amino acids that we absorb through food that our body can't produce itself, that's going to build a complete protein. Those complete proteins are going to help us repair our muscles, help grow our muscles. The more time we spend in the gym or in the garage these days doing push-ups and working out on the weight bench, the more we want to be able to give our body something healthy to work with and to start to rebuild. And we can accomplish that by eating things like quinoa or lentils, soybeans, tofu, tempeh, all great substitutes for animal protein. Now, the advantage of animal protein is that it already has all 9 essential amino acids in it, and it is a complete protein. However, the downside is it's very high in fat, it's very high in saturated fat, and it's a lot harder on our health. And with plant-based ingredients, we can eat a little bit healthier with all those negative effects on it. Now, with these fresh vegetables that we're going to add with the cooked tomatoes, there's all these immune boosters, and we try and limit ourselves to how much toxins that we take in, because as the more herbicides, the more pesticides, the more preservatives, the higher the contaminants and stabilizers that we have in our food, our immune system is trying to understand what this is that we just fed ourselves, how to process it, where to put it, and how to digest it. And it's really distracting our immune system from its primary purpose. And at this point, we really want it to fight disease and fight infection. It's really our goal all along. And so the cleaner that we eat our food, the less confusion there is once it's inside of us. Now we're going to take a look at our tomatoes. There we go. So now we're going to add these to our food processor. We've got all that lycopene-rich ingredients. We're going to add our tomatoes. Now to this, you can add some green onions. And if you'd like to work over your broiler, you could work over your broiler in the stove here itself. Or if you want to work outside on your grill. During the summertime when the weather's nice, you can get outdoors. And you can blend these ingredients using a food processor. If you just want to use a knife, you could also use a blender. Now I caution you, if you're going to put a blender with a tight lid on top, is that when the ingredients are really hot, that steam builds up really quick and it can explode. So you want to be very careful with that. A food processor can still do that, but a little bit less likely. We're going to add a little bit of salt to it so we can flavor it and so we can blend that salt into it. Now, the other thing that we're going to work with is add a little bit of fresh garlic. Now, I've got my garlic here, already peeled. And when I'm peeling garlic, one thing that I really want to look at is if you just squeeze the whole clove itself, you could usually open it up. And when people find that the garlic is hard to digest, it's a little bit harsher on their stomach, it's usually the center part. It's where it sprouts and where it grows. Sometimes it's a little bit more green the more developed that it is. And it's usually that part that's really harder to digest, a little bit, irritates the stomach a little bit. So we can easily remove that before we do anything. Now, garlic works best in the sulfur properties and the healing properties of garlic and the immune boosters really develop when we slice it, dice it, and chop it, and then let it sit for a few minutes and let all those chemicals release and develop and create that flavor. And then we can absorb it a whole lot better and it activates a lot stronger. So we can either slice it, dice it, or chop it, and then it's already been hanging out. Now we can rough chop it. When you're working with garlic, especially in a blender, the earlier on you put the garlic, the spicier and the more hot that heat can burn your tongue with it, the longer that's in the food processor. If you're pureeing something smooth like a hummus, it'll be in there longer. So you want to add the garlic chopped finer so the blender works at less hard, and then cut it finer and add it towards the end of the recipe so it's not in there and blending for so long. Now with the salsa, we're just going to rough chop it anyway, so it's not going to be in there regardless for very long. And then we're going to add another 1/4 cup of fresh cilantro as well. Now this, you can really just break it up and tear it apart with your fingers. Now that's going to help with the cells kind of release its flavor. Another thing with herbs is you can always smack it and you can really smell it. Once you do that, it sprays out the aroma and the oils, and it really brings the herbs to life, especially if you're making a cocktail, if you want to use fresh mint. Activating that is a great way, very significant flavor enhancer. We're going to add another 1/2 lime and squeeze that into our food processor. And a little bit of cumin. Let's see. We're going to use 1/2 teaspoon of cumin. And then we're going to put our lid on. And we're just going to pulse it so it's right. It only takes a few seconds to get the processor. And you can always taste it, make sure your flavors are right, and then you have a nice fresh roasted salsa. Now with our tacos, we're going to use corn tortillas. Now corn is a little bit more higher glycemic if you want to use a whole wheat tortilla. If you want to use a sprouted grain tortilla, it's going to lower that glycemic index a little bit. We just want to warm these up in our pan. And then we'll be able to create our lunch. Beautiful little plate with our tortillas that are nice and flexible. With our marinated and seared, caramelized, beautiful mushrooms. We're going to divide those up, 3 per mushroom, 3 per taco. And then we're going to take our delicious salsa. You see where it's all nice and flavored. And we're going to put a teaspoon on top. And we're going to finish this off with our crispy cilantro slaw. And there you have beautiful plant-based portobello mushroom tacos. If that doesn't make your heart healthy, I don't know what will. Now for this recipe and for more, visit canyonranch.com and see what else we're cooking up.